Hey superstars, hello again. Here we go with another video about teaching English in China. So I wanted to talk today specifically to you guys who are about to graduate college. First of all, congratulations. This is no small achievement. I know there's a lot of talk on the internet these days that sometimes tries to say that going to college isn't important. Maybe there's some truth to that, but it's really sort of depends on different situations. But guys, really, you have set yourselves up for a much brighter future. Don't let people say that you have not. Now, the theme of this video is going to be, don't be so quick to lock yourself into a life that you don't really want right now. Okay, so let's start by talking about what happens after you graduate from university. Most people fall into two camps. Amy is very sure of what she wants to do, and she's got her next few years very clearly planned out. On the other hand, Betty is a little less sure, but she knows she'll probably get a job somewhere and begin her adult life. Now, somewhere along the way, they've both picked up this desire, this curiosity about going someplace else for a bit, exploring, and maybe a nice little treat for having worked so hard for the past few years. Now, whether you're more an Amy or a Betty is really not so important. I'll explain why in a little bit. But the thing to recognize is this lingering idea that, oh, I do want to travel, I do want to have new experiences. Now, at this point, they have heard about this idea of teaching English abroad, so they have discovered a path to do this. So, as people do, they talk it over with friends and family, but none of them really know enough about it, and actually, some people will even try to talk them out of it. One person's best friend says, "Ooh, it sounds risky." Their mom says, "Shouldn't you be getting started with that career you said you wanted?" And then dad says, "So you just want to party your whole life, is it? It's time to buckle down and be an adult." Now, of course, these are all very valid comments, and maybe you do want to party for a while. Maybe you want to get away for a bit, travel, and have some new experiences, and so the idea lingers. And so what you decide to do at this point is to turn to the internet, and just like you've done here, you watch some YouTube videos, you read some blogs maybe, and what you get is so much different kinds of information. Some people say it's a terrible idea, and all they do is complain about all the bad experiences they had. Others say it's the best decision they've ever made, and so now you're more confused. The idea remains interesting. You do still want to travel and all of that, but now you're more confused. And because you're confused, you delay. Now, in the meanwhile, you get caught up with finishing school. You've got midterms and finals and internships, maybe a road trip for your final spring break. You've also got to plan events and parties with your friends, one last hurrah. And at last, you've got graduation, maybe one more quick party, and then you are truly now wrapping up your time in college. Now, for most people at this point, the travel idea still lingers. But it's really only in the back of their minds. They're too caught up with what they've got to do right now to really take it any further. So what happens next? You're officially finished with school. And this is about when most people, especially these days, they move back home with their families while preparing for the next step. Now again, this travel idea still lingers in the back of your head, but for right now, you need at least some money for day-to-day things. And for the person who wants to travel, this is where it can all go wrong. So let's start with Betty. If you remember, she's the one who's not really so sure what she wants to do. So she's back at home with her family, and she tells herself, well, I guess I should find a job now. So she starts working. She doesn't particularly enjoy her job, but she doesn't hate it either. She gets to help her family with a little money each month, and she's saving up to get her own place. And soon she starts saying things like, well, I guess I'll move out now and get myself an apartment. So I guess that means I need to get a bunch of furniture. So I guess that means I can't quit this job that I've started to hate because I need the money. But maybe I can quit and find a better one. Maybe, Oh, and I also wouldn't mind having a dog, and maybe at least a newer car as well. Oh, and I also met this guy. I don't really know him at all, but I'm supposed to meet him for coffee. You know, I really hope I meet a woman who sounds like this one day. I'm not sure where I heard this accent, but it's one of those things where it just I might have to get married and then very quickly divorced. Um, okay, so let's moving on. So you can see what's happening here. Betty is basically sliding into her adult life. And she's going about it in the very normal progression of how life is expected to go. This is, of course, not a bad thing, but you see what's happening. She's putting down roots. She's accumulating more and more things, which is requiring her to invest more and more time and, of course, more money. Now, because of how much she's invested, she probably can't bring herself to just abandon all of it to go abroad. She is locked in. So let's move on to Amy. So she's the one with a more clear idea of what she wants to do after college. Maybe it's grad school or maybe a career. Whichever the case, if she begins this life shortly after finishing her bachelor's, she will essentially have placed herself on a path and she too will pretty much be locked in. Now, of course, both Amy and Betty can abandon their paths at any time and try to come back to it later, but that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, especially with Amy. If you start a career and then take a gap year and then try to come back to it, it really doesn't look so good, and Amy doesn't really seem like the type to waffle back and forth like this either. Okay, so let's keep talking about Amy. So just after finishing school, she still wants very much to travel, and so she tells herself, okay, I'll work at this first job for a couple years and then I'll think about taking a long break. Now, at the end of those 2 years, what happens? Or even at the end of 1 year? She will have learned a lot about the job and she will have discovered many new opportunities within it. And then she very quickly starts to tell herself things like, if I stay another 6 months, I can get a raise. If I stay another year, I can get this other job. If I stay a little longer, my life can be better somehow. Now again, this isn't a bad thing. Amy is evolving into a person who very much is motivated to be successful in her work. But my question to both of them is, couldn't you still have done this after an epic 14 months of traveling? Why were you in such a hurry? Especially as a young person. You graduate university at 22, which means you'll be working for a long, long time before you retire. You remember they both wanted to travel, but now they've both put down roots and locked themselves into their lives. So now they can't go anywhere really. So maybe Amy and Betty respond by saying, well, my company gives me 2 weeks vacation time. I can still visit Asia or someplace far away like that. Oh, you think so, do ya? Okay, so let's say it is Asia. If you're traveling from North America, the flight itself will cost you a day in each direction. And then there's the jet lag, which will probably take you at least a day to recover from. So what is that now, 10 days? And this is also assuming you don't need to use any of your vacation days for things like family reunions and weddings and all those other little things that tend to chip away at your vacation time. So now I hope their response isn't something like, well then, I'm going to travel when I retire. Oh, okay, so they want to be that 60-year-old on a cruise ship. And when they are that old, they likely won't have the strength they once did, and they won't have memories of anything like this, or this, or this, or this, or this. And now, guys, I get it. Maybe you're still uncertain about going abroad, and you want to start your adult life. But really, what's the hurry? And also, I get it. It's February of 2020 right now. The economy is still relatively good, and it's probably easy to find a job. It might not be a high-paying job, but that's actually to your benefit if you're thinking about going abroad. That's because low paying jobs are the kinds you quit anyway to do something different.